Yes, so we just got the recent updated college football playoff committee rankings, and then we'll look at the seeding for the college football playoff after this. Obviously, we had some pretty big upsets this past weekend. Obviously, Michigan beating Ohio State, and then they couldn't get their sorry asses off the field, and so Ohio State tries to come over and start a fight. What a piece of shit program. The last thing I actually will say about the Michigan Ohio State thing, I like how apparently law enforcement there pepper sprays the Michigan players, not the Ohio State players, although it was reported some Ohio State players got some pepper spray. I doubt that. And Ohio State was the ones that came to midfield where Michigan was. Very interesting. So yeah, Texas beat Texas A&M. First time they played, 13 years. Amazing. They dominated, man. They dominated. My Longhorns looking pretty good. Looking pretty good at the right time of the year to be looking really good. Oregon, I don't know, man. I still got questions on Oregon. They're a really good team. I just question how much they've really been tested. That's all. Penn State, dude, not big on Penn State going into the playoffs. Not at all. But these two are actually going to be playing. Penn State has a really big game. Everybody knows Franklin's the head coach for Penn State has a really horrible record in top 5 matchups. I believe is like 1-12. It is not good. So Penn State, man, whew, good luck. Notre Dame will not get any first round bye because they don't play a conference championship. And that team, Notre Dame, how is Notre Dame 4? They lost to NIU. How are they 4, man? Someone explain this to me. Unbelievable. Anyways, that and you played nobody. Your only real test of the year was Texas A&M to start the year. You got the win, but it's not like Texas A&M was good. So I don't know. Notre Dame, they are not going to be competing in like the Final Four. I'd imagine. Depends on maybe how the seeding lines up. Georgia's going to be interesting to see how they do in the playoffs. They will be making the playoffs. They will be playing Texas this next weekend for the SEC championship game, and that'd be a good game. That's going to be a pretty good rematch. Georgia's tough, man. They have a lot of really good talent. When that talent plays as a team, they are really freaking good. They might be the best team in the country, but they play to the level of their competition, just like this past week with Georgia Tech. Like, why did they have to come back, a frantic comeback in the last 3 minutes to send that game to 8 overtimes? It's just crazy. Georgia this year is just so inconsistent. And I think they've already had one of their quarterbacks actually enter the transfer portal already before the SEC championship game this coming weekend. So, yeah, really interesting there with Georgia, man. I don't know. I don't think they're going to win the national championship just because the inconsistencies that they have. That and Carson Beck has proven to be consistently inconsistent. I know. Yeah, I just said that. So, for that reason alone, I'm just not really all that big on Georgia. Although, if they put it together, man, I also wouldn't be shocked. Ohio State. Dude, Ohio State. For how talented this team is, they have a pretty good shot. 'Cause they got a lot of talent. They do have a pretty good team. I'm not a fan of Will Howard and his clutchness of moments. And you saw it in the Michigan game, man. Just choked it at certain times. That and the play calling there for Ohio State in that Michigan game was really bad. So that knocked him out of the Big Ten championship game. Was that kind of a benefit? It's like you don't get to play this next weekend, but you're going to get to host a game at the Shoe, which would be really cool. I would look forward to kind of watching that. Who will they be hosting? Yeah, we'll take a look here in a sec. Tennessee, obviously, will not be playing this next weekend, but they'll be probably hosting the game, most likely, depending on maybe how some of the seating kind of falls. SMU. So SMU is an interesting one because they will be playing in the ACC championship game against Clemson. Clemson down here at 17. The interesting thing about SMU is they could possibly get knocked out of the playoffs if they lose that ACC championship game. So that'd be, man, I'll come to that when I get to Alabama. Indiana, I don't know why. I still think you're a fraud, and that was kind of the thing that a lot of, we talked about last week. There's frauds. There are frauds up here. And this past weekend exposed some of them frauds. Definitely. Clemson, one of them. Miami, yep. I still think Indiana is kind of a fraud. They played Purdue. They beat them like 66-0. Like, okay. So that's what Indiana's done all year. They played like the worst teams in the Big Ten and beat them all. And then they played one tough team in the Big Ten, Ohio State, and got absolutely smoked. Boise State, they also could get knocked out of the playoff because they will be playing in the Mountain West Conference championship game against UNLV. So, yeah, that could be interesting there. Boise State, who might have the Heisman winner, probably not. That's probably going to go to Sanders at Colorado. So, or not. Ashton Gentry. That's who I was trying to think of. So, Ashton Genty. Anyways, I think Boise State will probably wind up winning, but that's going to be some possibilities. So, if and that won't really dictate anything on Boise State, UNLV, because one of these teams is going to get that slot, so it doesn't really matter. And why it doesn't matter is these teams right here, 11 through 14. So basically the committee kind of said, Ole Miss, you're out. South Carolina's out. South Carolina, I was going to be real interested to see where they rank South Carolina, because this team has gotten so much better throughout the year, especially that back half of the year. They've gotten really good. They beat Clemson at Clemson this past weekend. Knocked Clemson out of like the top 10. So that are at least the playoff 12. So South Carolina, but South Carolina didn't even jump Ole Miss or any of these teams in here. So that's really weird. I don't know why that didn't happen, because South Carolina to me is probably the one that looks maybe the best right now out of Ole Miss and Alabama. And Miami's a fraud. They should not be there. Yeah, they should have dropped Miami past South Carolina. Alabama though, so Alabama's the one right now clearly on the bubble. They will not be playing this weekend. But what you cannot have happen, or what you were probably hoping to happen, you're wanting SMU to beat Clemson. I think you were wanting SMU to beat Clemson. The reason why I say that, I think if you're Miami, you're probably hoping for more chaos, where you get maybe SMU and Boise State both lose and they want to dropping and you can move up. But Alabama, in Alabama's case, what you don't want to happen is you don't want Clemson to win and then SMU only drops 2 spots, and then they would then take your at-large from Alabama, because Clemson wouldn't jump all the way up into the top 12. So Clemson would probably maybe jump like 2 or 3 slots, maybe by next week's rankings. But Clemson will get the conference championship win, and SMU would get like an at-large if they don't drop far enough. So I think if you're Alabama, you're just saying, hey, SMU just win. That way it's not chaotic. We're not having to like sweat bullets here. I think that's probably like the one crazy scenario where that could possibly happen. Miami, you're probably not going to make it no matter what. But Ole Miss, I was really surprised they left South Carolina as low as they did. Ole Miss played Mississippi State, who is maybe the worst team in SEC play right now, or at least it was this year. And Alabama played Auburn, okay. Yeah, both of these two teams, actually Ole Miss and Alabama, played the two worst teams in SEC play this year. So Arizona State, man, has come on strong at the end of the year. They have the ability to play Iowa State, ranked at 16, for the Big 12 championship game, which is going to be really neat. I like Iowa State. Maybe not to win. I don't know anything about Arizona State. That's the only thing that kind of sucks. I wish I could kind of speak on a little bit more behalf of Arizona State. But Iowa State, man, very well-coached team. Campbell, the head coach, is very good. That team is usually very disciplined. They very much do not make mistakes. You have to beat them because Iowa State doesn't usually beat themselves. So that's going to be a good game. I kind of look forward to watching that, just mostly because I want to see Arizona State play. Clemson, yeah, lost a big one to South Carolina, but they still got their own path. With Miami losing this past weekend, that put them into which Clemson's game with South Carolina didn't matter about determining if they were going to the ACC championship game. It was all about Miami's game with Syracuse. And so since Miami lost, Clemson is going to play SMU. BYU, yeah, probably just a lot of these teams are just going to bowl games. UNLV is going to have a shot, obviously, with Boise State. Illinois, it was kind of interesting. I saw some interesting stats. Illinois has a better case on wins and losses than like some of these SEC teams that are up here, but yet they're all the way down here at 21. This is what happens when you do not schedule tough non-conference teams. You don't get that recognition. Syracuse, another one that been pretty solid throughout the year, but knocked off Miami, which Miami just doesn't have a defense. Good grief. Like every game, Miami's just been in a shootout. It's been awful. So bummed not going to see Colorado and Coach Prime in a possible playoff scenario. I thought that would have been super cool. Army, go Army, and Memphis wrapping it up in the top 25. As far as the playoff bracket and the seeding, this is how it currently lays out. What is super fascinating is you got SMU and Boise State in first round bye spots. That is crazy. You would have thought that this is going to be like Oregon, sure, Texas, okay, like Clemson, and then maybe like, I don't know, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, someone like that. And it's not. It's Boise State and SMU. It's just funny. Just funny how the cookie crumbles. Some of these games are kind of interesting. Ohio State hosting a playoff game in the shoe. Oh man, that looks really, really interesting. If your goal is to win the national championship game, do you want to play Oregon in the conference championship game for a first round bye, or do you want to bye on championship weekend and play Tennessee? That's a tough one. I think I would rather just say, you know what, I'm good not playing the conference championship weekend and playing Tennessee. And then the only bad thing is you get to then play Oregon anyways, right? I mean, it's very possible if Georgia beats Texas, Oregon beats Penn State. I mean, someone might drop enough off of one of those slots that maybe Ohio State you move up to 5, and then you're maybe down here in the bottom end on the bracket. I'm talking about on the rankings, rankings 5 instead of being ranked 6, so that you get maybe the seed down here, lower end. You're not having to go through Oregon. I think really if you could be a team playing in this bottom bracket down here, that would be a big deal. I think that would be a big deal, because then you're possibly not having to go through Oregon, which if they are that good, not having to go through the number 1 team. Because the interesting thing about the college football playoff, this is the perfect year to have a 12-team playoff. Are we going to get the right 12 teams in? It doesn't matter. Like, we're going to get the best team in college football in, because usually the best teams, like in at least the 5 or 6, right? It's usually in like the top 5 or 6. Most years, it's like the top 3, 2, 3. This year, there is so many possible teams that, it's such a great year for the 12-team playoff. Indiana, like, who is Indiana? We don't know. We don't know who Indiana is, and if they win a playoff game, then it's like, okay, maybe they do belong. But it's like, that loss they took to Ohio State doesn't kind of show that they do belong. Notre Dame, I don't think belongs, but you get in there and anything kind of happens. So it's just, there's some pretty interesting things here. The ones I'm kind of looking forward to are, one, the home playoff games. The Notre Dame would be neat. Ohio State would be cool. Penn State, cool. But some of these matchups, like Arizona State, Penn State, have those two teams ever played each other? I don't know. Maybe not. Indiana, Georgia. I would like to think that Indiana, Georgia have played each other. But maybe they haven't. So it's just it just opens up this possibility of seeing teams match up. Maybe that haven't matched up in a really long time, or just have never matched up at all. So I think it'll be pretty neat. I think this is gonna be a lot of fun. I think for the most part they are probably right on the teams that should be in. I know there's going to be like, oh man, should this team got in at number 12 or not, or or I guess the 11, the last at large bid. And it's like it doesn't matter. Most likely that team is not going to be good enough to go the whole way. Now the one thing I will say about Alabama getting into that spot is, well, it's Alabama. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of talent that is still there from the Nick Saban era. They know how to win. Right? Those aren't fully Kalen DeBoer's guys yet. So they can probably get up for a couple games. So Alabama getting in, that'll be a big one. That'll be a big one. And look at that draw there for Alabama. If this is how it is going to be, Alabama, you get Notre Dame, which I would pick Alabama in that game, and then you get SMU. I would take Alabama in that game. That might be the easiest path right there, just because I have no respect for Notre Dame. SMU, I think SMU would actually beat Notre Dame. I just have no respect for Notre Dame. That NIU loss was just so bad. Yeah, other than that, man, there's going to be some really interesting matchups. I'm really looking forward to this. I think we're getting a lot of teams in that really haven't been in contention before, because if we were taking the top 4 teams, it would be some pretty blue blood programs. It would be Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame. That's who it would be. And it's like, yeah, okay. Big name brands, and that's about it. But, going to see Tennessee in there. When was the last time Tennessee was really relevant in football? Late 90s. So, SMU, Indiana, Boise State. Kind of at the lower end of this tier here, Not to say that these are all schlub teams, but the fact that it's not just all teams that we've seen over the past 20 years competing for college championship trophies is going to be really great. This is going to be really cool. I'm really excited about this. I think for the most part, is the seeding order maybe you can debate on a little bit, sure, but it doesn't matter because that's not the whole idea of a playoff. The whole idea of a playoff is to figure out the one best team. And the only thing I would say that they need to change for next year is reseeding after every round based on rank. Based on rank, reseed after every round. That way, when you get to the championship game, this would be the 2 best teams. Championship game, whether that's 1 and 2, 1 and 3, that would be the two best teams right there. That's what you want. That's what you were wanting. The 2 best teams playing in the championship game.